Hi everyone, thanks for joining me. It's Jen here from tarotspirit.net. I hope this finds you well. I'm going to do another pick a card reading because I think they're really fun to do. And this one is a past life reading, so trying to get an idea of who you were or a significant experience you had in a past life. And even if you don't believe in past lives, I don't know what I believe in, honestly. I still think it's really fun. So we have the Steampunk Tarot, and I realized I have a rough cut moonstone and a smooth moonstone. The Crystal Visions Tarot with a rough cut rose quartz and a smooth rose quartz. And the Mystic Dreamer Tarot with an amethyst, and this is a smooth amethyst. I know it looks, the coloring's very different. This was fairly washed out when I got it. The amethyst will wash out if you keep it in direct sunlight. So, all right, so take a minute if you want to pause, figure out which deck, or watch them all. I tend to watch them all, and we'll get going. I'm going to start with the Steampunk Moonstone first. Should write that down. So 125. We're starting with Steampunk Tarot. Those two. Okay, all right, on the bottom of the deck here is the Seven of Swords. So you were a thief. No, just kidding. So this is a card about having to deal with really difficult people. I would say if this card comes up as a past life, you may be easily triggered, and not that your behavior is inappropriate, but you may carry a lot of anxiety with you because you've had to, in a past life, walk on eggshells, and maybe you have. Want to say you have to, it's not a good sounding way to say it, but like it's hard for you to trust people because people have not been trustworthy in the past. Let's look at some other ones. So the Three of Wands, you may have actually emigrated to escape persecution or difficult situations in your homeland. So you definitely may have traveled. I'm envisioning like an overseas boat ride to escape trying to escape, these types of difficult situations. The Hermit. Maybe I'm thinking for someone who would have been married to a man, maybe once you escaped that situation, you stayed alone, purposefully and happily, did not remarry because of what you had to endure and the times that really didn't support women's rights. And so, but I see more as not like, people like to, you always see like the spinster or the whatever, this bitter woman. Like, I don't see that at all. I see a very secure, person who's able to stand up for themselves and take care of themselves, and actually has a very sage and very philosophical take on things and a lot of wisdom, and is a real support even for others. Even though this is, the Hermit is an alone card, they are able to really use these difficult experiences to grow spiritually. And it's probably someone that may live alone, but people travel to seek out their wisdom and support. Judgment. Yeah, there was, to me, a traumatic situation, and it did not break you. You rose to the challenge. You didn't tolerate it. Like there was a breaking point, and you were just like, nope, not having it. And I feel like, you lost everything in a sense. Not that, yeah, it was worth losing everything, like your possessions, friends, fam, whatever, to move to a completely different continent, potentially, or a different place. You left everything behind in order to survive, and not in that way you weren't it was worth it to maintain your autonomy and your self-respect and your value as a person. You were not willing to submit to rules that just didn't make any sense to you, that weren't right for you, that weren't fair, that you knew weren't fair. Your wisdom was well beyond the sort of social norms at the time, and you were able to break from those even in times when systems were set up completely against you. You rose up to the challenge, and so this could be actually you sneaking away to save yourself, and maybe you had a family you took with you. I'm not sure. With only, sort of quote unquote, the clothes on your back, and escaping from a very toxic situation and thriving. I'm getting almost this like, I don't know if you guys have ever watched, I'm old, so I like shows like this, Miss Fisher's Murder Mysteries. It's charming. And it's like a Miss Fisher like situation where she's just a very modern woman in the 1920s, even for this day and age. Okay, let's move on. I can't remember what I had next. I think this. Okay, so the next group of cards, the Mystic Dreamer. I forgot what the name of this deck was for a second. I like to use this card for, oh, that's interesting. Got a couple cards that are turned over. Let's mix those in. I like to use this deck for romance readings. I don't know if it's the coloring. It's a very sort of dreamy romantic deck. And there are our cards. Ooh, okay. Bam. The Tower. So this, very simply, you survive some sort of traumatic, I'm going to say, weather event, some sort of earthquake or fire or tsunami, what are all the hurricanes, like some sort of very big event in history. You were a part. It could have been a war. Look at the crashing seas, a hurricane. But you survived some sort of I even think this would be some sort of event that was historically important, something you could read about in history books, that made such an impact. People were aware of it even in our times. Four of Pentacles. Look at, it's almost like you're on a boat, like you're holding on to during this event to save your life, like a very life-threatening situation. Page of Pentacles, you were able to, it's like someone, and I don't think it was the Great Depression, but you learned how to live, and it's very highlights kind of what's going on in these times, only much more dire back in different, less modern times. You learned how to survive with very little and how to ration. That's the word. I'm sorry. I'm trying to think of words. That's my pauses here. You know what it's like to ration, to have to conserve things to make sure that they last, and to exist on very little. It's funny. The last group, a TV show came up. In this group, I'm thinking of the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Society. So, I mean, that's not a very long ago past life. What's that, World War II? Is that World War II? I think it's World War II because the Nazis. If you haven't read that book, I haven't read the book. What am I talking about? I've only seen the movie. I think it was Netflix, and they did a really good job. It was so charming, and I need to read the book. So that type of existence where those people, I mean, they had to eat potatoes for like years, and they just had to exist with very, very little because of circumstances that were beyond their control. But there's a resiliency that comes from that, a confidence and core strength that definitely would carry into other lifetimes. So I don't know if you're very frugal even today, or very, or maybe that could translate today, just being very mindful of waste, being very smart and careful with the environment and recycling and limiting your waste and the amount of things you bring into your home, and being environmentally careful and things like that. That's how that translates and looks like in today's society. Eight of Swords. I'm going to take a very literal interpretation of this, because I feel like you literally were not literally tied up like this, but that there was a pause, a suspension while people dealt with the actual event and the aftermath, where you were literally stuck. And perhaps you did, now I'm thinking of Outlander, the most recent, that you had to sort of disassociate, and you were in survival mode for quite some time, and maybe even psychologically you had to disassociate to be able to handle the horror of sort of what was going on. Almost like now I'm getting like an Anne Frank type vibe. Yeah, I'm getting a really strong World War II vibe. So maybe if I don't know if younger people watch this channel, I don't know how much I relate to the younger generation, but they could, if they were older at the time, they could have another life depending on what you believe in, or that type of epigenetics is carrying over in your genes to you right now. That maybe it wasn't your past life, but your inherited experience from your family. All right, so let's move on to the final group. Where are we at? 14, 25. Okay, the last group is the Mystic Dreamer and the Amethyst. Hello, group 3. We're collecting all sorts of rocks. I bought this past summer, and my dear friend and roommate from college that I've known now 30 years or more, we went to a metaphysical shop, and she's like, "Are you buying rocks?" And I'm like, Yes, I am buying rocks. Beth. She's so funny. She's like, okay, I guess why would that surprise me about you? Okay, Mystic Dreamer, past lives. Let's grab, you're getting an extra. Ooh, justice. Could have been a lawyer, to be very literal. You could have been involved in a significant court case. You could have been someone that really, oh, my son is doing U.S. history and we're learning a lot about Harriet Tubman. I mean, we all knew she was amazing, but when you really, I didn't remember any of the details of her life and how amazing and strong and incredible a woman she, oh my God, just unbelievable, and how she literally risked her lives for others to bring them. Maybe, okay, why did that come up? Maybe this is like a Civil War vibe, maybe a slave, maybe something to do with the Underground Railroad, the Civil War. Okay, we'll go with it. Yeah, look at this. Does this not look like a slave imagery or someone being forced to carry and work and do more than they can handle? And the interesting thing is we do this to ourselves. In this day and age, we're overburdened. We take on more than we can, and we just pile more and more on our backs. Which is interesting. So if you think, I don't know, if you think about past life, and there are many indentured servants that were not from Africa. A lot of people were sent from Europe, not only escaped from Europe, but were sent. I'm using Outlander, which I know is a novel, but it's fairly historically accurate. I'm just thinking a lot of those Scottish prisoners were sent over to America as indentured servants, which is probably a fancy word for slave. The lovers. Oh, okay. Now I'm seeing like this, like a quote unquote forbidden love at the time. So that could be, of course, different races or cultural backgrounds back then could be, even if you're a different economic group. I mean, ugh. But I'm seeing sort of risking things, or okay, then this wouldn't be that time, but really standing up to the system, to the establishment, in order to have equal rights. So why can't I marry someone of the same sex? Why can't I know that was very recent, but the roots of that could have been very far back. So whatever the equivalent of something like that at a time around the Civil War, slaves' rights. Was it at that time for women to be able to own land and things like that? So some sort of landmark standing up and testing the system for. So why can't a woman own land? Why can't, fill in the blank? Why can't I marry this person that I love instead of having my dad marry me off to someone because it financially helps the family? So I see some sort of like Romeo and Juliet type thing happening. And yeah, people didn't like it. People were all up in your business and decided that who you loved was all about them. The sun, but I love it. It was like one of these true life love stories of struggle and justice, and not being relentless, not relenting to society, and knowing for sure that what you were doing there was nothing wrong with what you were doing, and you were entitled to the same rights as others. And and you were going to go against society because society was just following centuries old um, just patriarchy, things that have been put in place that people just carried along just because it worked for them and it was the way it was, or it worked for the people in power. And other people went along with it because they felt powerless. But you were the type of person that was like, no, this is unfair, and I shouldn't have to bend because it's the rules that are wrong. Oh my God, I'm getting all these pop references. So that reminds me of Game of Thrones when Arya, like in season one, they were trying to make her like all the girls like do needlepoint. And she just wanted to be out shooting arrows. And she tells a story about, I don't know if she tells a story in season one, but it would be reflecting back to that time how she was practicing with a bow and arrow, and she caught her dad watching her. And even though in that time it was wrong, he still like smiled at her. And she says something to the effect of, I realized it wasn't that what I was doing was wrong, it was that the rules were wrong. So that having the strength to be able to see, and the vision, and the um, to be able to see situations where it isn't that what you're doing was wrong. It's that the system, the rules were wrong. Oh, I like that one. That was cool. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye.